Hi, I'm Paul Friedman, founder of the Marriage Foundation, and today's topic is the question, are some marriage counselors better than others? Welcome back. I'm Paul Friedman, founder of the Marriage Foundation, and in today's video, we're going to discuss a question that most people have when they're starting to look for marriage help, and that is, are some marriage counselors better than others, or are they all pretty much the same? So let me state unequivocally to begin with that marriage counseling is more of an art than an exact science. The fact of the matter is that the people who become marriage counselors start out in Western psychology, and now this isn't true for the marriage counselors that we have at the Marriage Foundation. But they start out in Western psychology. They're young, they're not experienced. Most people, almost all of them, get into the field of Western psychology because they're having questions about themselves. And it's more of like a second thing, not the first thing, to help others. And this is not a bad thing. I mean, people want to learn about themselves because they're having difficulty, and then they want to share what they learn with others. Unfortunately, my experience is that most marriage counselors don't really take that second step with the right attitude, you might say. They get into marriage counseling because the person who they studied under, because in Western psychological world, before you can start practicing, you have to work under somebody as an intern, as a protege. And if they get a job working for someone who's a marriage counselor, then that's the field they get into. It's not exactly the same as medical students who choose their profession based on something that really moves them. Some become blood specialists, others become bone specialists, some become surgeons, etc. So my experience, and again, I'm not a Western psychologist. I started out doing this kind of in a different way. I was a divorce mediator, and I was in San Diego County, which is very much a great place to be a divorce mediator. And I made a very good living, but a couple asked me to help them save their marriage instead of end it. And I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. And when I spoke to my friends who are marriage counselors who pretty much sent me all my business, they said, Paul, you'll be really good at this because you know how to listen, you know how to sort things out. And mediation is really a big part of marriage counseling. And I thought that was a little strange because that's suggesting that marriage is sort of like a business, and it isn't. Now, when people are ending their marriage, of course, it is a business because they're distributing assets, taking certain responsibilities for their children, which are assets you can't just dump off or give to the other. But real marriage is not based on a business mentality. Real marriage, and I have discovered this over time, is really all about taking the beginning of your marriage, which was filled with happiness and love and harmony, and wanting more of the same, and wanting that for the rest of your lives. Isn't that so? And so I started to look at marriage quite differently. So you might say that I was a marriage counselor, even though I wasn't trained as such. And for 8 years, I worked with couples and individuals as I developed the teachings that we now present at the Marriage Foundation, which quite honestly is far superior to anything you'll find in the Western psychology world, because we don't deal with issues. You see, when you're wanting to heal your marriage, then what you're really seeking is a program, a process that focuses back on how do we regain our happiness. And Western psychology is a way of saying what's wrong with this, as if it's like a car engine that is making a noise. What's wrong with this? Let's fix it, and then everything will be okay. Except marriage is not like a car engine. Marriage is more like a living plant. And you might say that the fertilizer, the sustenance for this plant is love, is an infusion of joyful behavior. And the flowers that come from this plant are love and happiness. I don't mean to get too poetic, but the thing of it is that some marriage counselors have gotten what I got. They figured it out. And so they move away from the, okay, how did that make you feel? Routine. Oh, what was your childhood like? Routine. Let's talk about what's bothering you that they're doing. Routine. And all of those things that most marriage counselors focus on are blaming someone or something and trying to work on that. And I say, that's sort of like refurbishing your marriage without a real goal of what it is that you actually want, which is you want that happiness, that connection back in your marriage that you very first experienced. So let's talk about that a little bit, because it'll give you more of an understanding of where I'm going with this. So when you realized this is the one, there was this very deep sense of connection. And that sense of connection could be described as love and joy. Isn't that true? And if you try to put it into material terms of the mind, like, well, and most of us do in the beginning, say, well, I really love him or I really love her because of this, that, and da 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 da. You know, oh, he's so handsome. He makes me laugh. That's the big one. He makes me laugh. She really understands me. She knows exactly how to turn me on. These are material things. And these material things are not what creates love. In fact, if we dive deeply into the reality, then we recognize that it is love that gives these outer things substance. And it's that love, if you go back and think about it, it's that overwhelming love that you love. It's that sense of love. And then there's also that sense of belonging. Oh, they really appreciate me and they really love me. And so that is the psychological aspect of the connection, which is where Western psychologists go to, but it's not where the wise marriage counselors go. Wise marriage counselors say that it's more of a didactic experience with them. They say, okay, I'm going to teach you how to cultivate the love that you have. I'm also going to teach you techniques just like we do. What I discovered is kind of hidden by trends in the world and, as I said, Western psychology, but it's there for all to find, for all to discover. So instead of going, well, let's work on communication, what they'll do is they'll teach you how to infuse your communication with love. They'll teach you to disregard inadvertent, harmful communications that are not intentional, they're inadvertent. It's like, for discussion's sake, let's say you're the man and your wife says, can't you get that right? And in today's world, what would happen would be the marriage counselor would say to the wife, well, you really shouldn't speak that way to your husband, which is obviously true. But they'd also say to the husband, look, maybe she had a big day. Doesn't make any difference. She loves you. And so what came out of her mouth, you don't have to hear it as an attack. You don't have to take it in any way, shape, or form. Instead, you go into your heart and you feel the love and you cultivate that love even if she's having an off day. And the same could be said to the wife. If she feels attacked, then the wise marriage counselor says, well, feeling attacked means that you're identifying with your ego. You see, there's all of these explanations that we need to learn about to really have a successful marriage. And what they do is they show you how to transcend, to, instead of being your ego and hearing it as an attack, being defensive, they teach you how to not worry about it at all, not take it as an attack. But again, to remind yourself, well, this is the husband, this is the wife who I love, and that's where I'm going, and I'm not going to worry about how they're feeling, even if they do it all the time. So you see, here's the problem with marriages, is that no one knows how to be married because we're not taught. You know where we learn about marriage? We learn about marriage by watching sitcoms, movies, and reading dumb articles in magazines, or watching stupid YouTube videos like this one. Oh, did I say that about ours? No, ours is different. So what I came to, the realization that I came to, which is really valid and proven now since 2001. So I'm recording this at the end of 2025. So for a quarter century, this has been working. And so there's parts to a marriage that a good marriage counselor will teach you. One is they'll educate you about marriage. The do's and the don'ts. It's sort of like marriage morality, you might say. Marriage morality is not about, and if you do this, you'll be punished, although you will. Marriage morality is about what works and what doesn't. And they provide the guardrails. I'll give you an example. You don't tell your husband that he's stupid. You don't tell your wife that she's fat. These are just simple day-to-day guardrails. But then you explain why they exist. And these are very deep reasons. Okay, I brought that up, so I'm not going to leave you hanging. You don't tell a man he's stupid because the man, due to his subconsciousness, which is sort of created by his psychophysiology. I'm not trying to lose you with these words, but I'll go into it a little bit. So all of us are composed, our bodies are composed of trillions of cells. Each cell is all about survival. It's all about self-preservation. And so within all of these cells, as they combine and they become either the male or female gender, what happens is they take on certain attributes. So for a man, you might say one of the primary attributes is that he's protective, he's a warrior. And so you don't want to tell the guy protecting you that he's stupid. It's hitting below the belt, so to speak, and it does not build your connection. But understanding why it doesn't build your connection is important. So, all the myriad things that you could have said can be replaced by things that you should have said. And for a woman, you don't call her fat because the woman's power is in her beauty. And so obviously you don't want to undermine that. You want to lift her up in your relationship and let her know you see your wife already as the most beautiful woman who's ever lived. If you don't, you're missing something. And so you want to promote that and make that part of it. So are there better marriage counselors than others? Absolutely there are. But the ones who are the best simply don't rely on Western psychological or trendy methods. They got their marriage counselor license, and now they've completely gone off on their own and discovered the things that I discovered. Now, whether you use a marriage counselor or you use one of our offerings, of course, are what they are because they're solid. We have these videos, we have articles, and they're free. And then I wrote a couple of books, Lessons for a Happy Marriage and Breaking the Cycle. And they're both well received and very positive, very dynamic. And then for marriages that are in serious trouble, because a lot of people don't get marriage counseling when their marriage is in serious trouble. They're just working things out. In those cases, one of those books are fine, and you should check the reviews on those books. Again, Breaking the Cycle and Lessons for a Happy Marriage. But if your marriage is in serious trouble, then you really should look into our online course for men or for women, depending on your gender. And the reason why those are so powerful is because they encompass virtually everything about marriage that you need, and it's a very step-by-step process to take you out of the swamp of drama that you find yourself in when your marriage is coming to an end. And it also breaks the trend of your marriage continuing downward, and it gives you the ability to completely revamp your marriage into a very positive thing. We made that very easy for people to get. It comes with a 3-day free trial, so you're not putting up any money. And then there's payment plans that start below $10 a week, believe it or not. Yeah, what can you get for $10 a week? A cup of coffee. And so it really is beneficial. It's a 12-week course, but you get lifetime access. On top of that, you have access to our marriage counselors who are trained by me, and they're very, very good. And they really care, but more than that, they really understand what works and what doesn't work. Now, you could reach out to one of our counselors now for free. There's a link below, Ask a Counselor. And if you want help in your particular situation right now, and you want help from me, then you could put something in the comments section other than, oh, I love your video, and blah, 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 blah. You could say, I'm going through this. Can you give me some tips? And I will do my best to help you. So, yes, there are better marriage counselors, of course, just like everything else. Finding them is not so easy, and that's why I always steer people towards my books or the course. Okay, I hope that was helpful. I'm Paul Friedman. I'm founder of the Marriage Foundation. And if you want to share this with others, that would be awesome. And I hope to see you again. God bless you. Thank you and take care.